welcome again to another one of our podcasts with key people in the industry regarding business crime reduction. We're with Sophie Jordan, the CEO of the National Association of Business Crime Reduction Partnerships. And I'm with Gregg from ShopSafe with the most wonderful job title, which is Head of Customer Success, not service, Head of Customer Success. We were recently talking to Amanda Mulholland from PCPA and talking a lot about engagement and talking a lot about the resources that are there for bids and crime reduction partnerships to take hold of, and also the importance of accreditation. But Martin, talk to me a little bit about ShopSafe before we get into this whole issue of data, because that's where I want to go with you today.
Hi, Paul. Hi, Sophie. Nice to be here. And yes, so ShopSafe is a business started about 30 years ago, and started actually in as a reseller of Philips radios. So that is why it's still a core part of the business is radios and radio communication. So we now have smart radios. They're digital as opposed to analog. And we've expanded the ecosystem. We talk about an ecosystem of products to include body-worn cameras, and then underpinning all of this, so the sort of foundation now is our alert crime intelligence platform. So this is an incident reporting software which does all sorts of very clever and incredible things in the background using data. So those are the three principal products. Linked to that, then we have a product which is vision, which is just live facial recognition and other AI. And we have a product called Compass, which sits within the alert platform, which I'll probably mention a bit later, but it's like a virtual analyst. So it's a whole suite of solutions.
We'll come on to alert, because I think people will be very interested in that. I kind of want to dive straight in with you, Martin. And Sophie, I'll bring you in on this as well, if I may, shortly, about this whole issue of data, because it can overwhelm you, or if you've got too much of it, not enough undermines your ability to deliver. It can be incredibly confusing as well, and terrifying if you get it wrong. And we talked a little bit in the previous podcast about accreditation and about the importance of credibility. Talk to me a bit about this whole issue with data, Martin, in the sense of knowing what to report, how to get it, correct usage of it, etc. From your perspective, how do you see that across bids and BCRPs?
I think the key one actually that you mentioned is actually getting it in the first place. So if you don't have it, then obviously you can have the most wonderful software in the world, but it's not going to do anything. So I think that's crucial. That comes down to user engagement. So it's about how the platform performs in terms of getting the user wanting to report their data. So in the case of our alert platform, it's very intuitive. You can report an incident in about 30 seconds. So it's specifically designed to make it as easy as possible in a very time-restricted environment. The second point, once you have the data, obviously you can end up in a situation where you're literally drowning in information. And again, particularly I'd say from a bid or BCR perspective, but even within retail, there's less and less resource for somebody to actually go and do anything with that information. So you want to be able to pick out what's the wood from the trees, if you want to use a tired cliche. But so again, that comes down to the software itself. Is this just a repository, in which case you may as well just have an Excel spreadsheet, or is this something that's going to take that data and make it valuable? And so, this is why I would always promote getting software that's going to make your life easier. And this, I mentioned, that the Compass product is designed to do that. It's starting to join the dots. It's pulling out the relevant information. So that's critical, and that's something you really need to consider when you're looking at software or technology. And the third thing is obviously the compliance. So, why are you collecting this data? How is it being processed? And who is it being processed by, and for what purpose? and all of the not just the GDPR, but the information security that sits behind this, because you're obviously going to be collecting vast amounts of data.
Sophie, can I come to you? Because Martin raises really three interesting points there. One about you've got to have it in the first place, how much you get overwhelmed, and then, in terms of what you're going to use it for. And then the thirdly bit is using whatever you use it for correctly. From NABCP's point of view, how important is data and its usage in terms of the work that you guys do with bids and BCRPs across the country?
It's hugely important. BCRPs and bids, relying on that data in order to provide the services that they deliver. Without that data, we're unable to identify what the crime problematic persons of note would be. And then obviously encouraging the police to take action on the crime reports that have come in as well. So it's really important that we're receiving that data locally, because the local solution is the way forward in terms of solving the problem that we have. In terms of the role that NABCP plays, we're very keen to work with suppliers such as ShopSafe, who deliver amazing compliant software. And our role in this is making sure that the people using the software are doing so correctly, and constantly sharing the information, the best practice, and on how they should be doing this in a compliant way. And also with the accreditation, actually observing, are their policies actually meeting their operational processing as well. So the role of NABCP is to guide and make sure that it's being used effectively, and also with our wealth of experience, encouraging that engagement and giving them tips and advice at a local level on how we can engage people to be participating and reporting more.
Also, in terms of getting the data, I think another important point is where is the data coming from? So if a retailer is using their own internal platform, then potentially they don't, or they often don't want to share it on any other platform, simply from the point of view, actually, from time and again from resource. So I think an important thing to underline about the work we do with bids and BCRPs is when a bid or BCRP is using the alert platform, we will facilitate the sharing of that data into bids and BCRPs. So if it's a BCRP or bid who's using alert, that's very simple. It's already built, but we have also developed APIs into other systems. So that's a critical point, I think, is it's not about sitting on this data. It's about sharing it where it's most relevant in a compliant way and secure way.
I was going to come on to that. I think that's a really important bit. I'd be really interested where you see ShopSafe in this, Martin, in the sense that Sophie talked very much about the importance of having this information locally. It's a local solution for a local problem, but we all know that this is a national problem.
Yeah.
Issues of antisocial behavior, retail crime, etc. So how do we bridge that? And maybe I'd like to get you to expand on what you just said. How do we bridge that issue from local to national so that there are local solutions, but there is a regional and a national approach to what is something that is, is honestly a scourge across the whole of the UK?
This is still, it's a sort of developing conversation, I guess. So as I've mentioned, obviously the simple one from a retailer into a BCRP, that's great. Retailers themselves then currently have the ability to take their own information into policing, or either at a regional level or local level, or nationally. So they can take the information into the likes of Opal as well. I think from a bid or BCRP perspective, it's giving the ability to then start to share between those organizations. So whether you take the view that you deal with something on a local level, but have visibility across a wider area, so you can start to share information between those organizations in a proportionate way. So and that can all be set up functionally, can be set up within the platform. And obviously, at that point, you bring policing into it. So you would choose to share something either with local policing, or you would escalate it where it now becomes, say, county level. and equally can then share it into the likes of Opal. So we've spoken several times about this ethos in ShopSafe, which is about data sharing from a local to national level, because
Sure.
there's recognition of the fact that there's a huge amount of intelligence that sits locally that can feed and drive the national conversation.
Sophie, where does NABCP sit on this? Because it would seem to me that if I'm from the outside of this, but it would seem to me that NABCP has potential here to be a broker or to drive this with the various players that you have the connections with.
So I'm delighted that ShopSafe are actually delivering a platform that retailers can use to report their incidents on, so an internal reporting system for retailers with that willingness to share to BCRPs, because I think that's really unique, is that we're cutting out this multiple reporting that retailers currently have to do, which is preventing the reporting to the police and preventing even internal and BCRP reporting as well. So I do think it's really important that we're able to facilitate that for retailers, which is where the issue lies, because people who work in shops have so many things they have to do every day, with more and more constraints on their time. So able to trim down that time and making sure that everybody gets the information that they need, because it's not just reporting internally or BCRP reporting. We also have to think about, is it being reported to the police? And if we're freeing up time for that, the essential ones to be reported as well, then we're on to a winner with things like criminal behaviour orders and other actions that can be taken against the most prolific offenders who are causing most of the harm.
Yeah. On another level as well is that the police, as Sophie points out, they are critical, and so this is a very big focus, and it's not just a focus of ours, ShopSafe. It's a focus of anyone who's really running these sort of or selling these sort of platforms. But to me, it comes down to two things. The first one is, what access police have to say an alert platform. So what information can they view, and what information can they share? Because if you think about on a local level, if a local police officer has access to an alert platform in a BCRP, there's a wealth of information they can utilize. So that's the first one. The second one then is opening it up so that you can directly report to police. So and that really changes the nature of the whole exercise, because at that point it is a crime. It's crimed, obviously with the necessary triage in place. So both of those things are we are actively involved in. It's a national conversation now, and so I think that's going to really move BCRPs and bids forward once all of that is done and dusted. to put it simply, I mean it makes it sound overly simple, but it's not. It's a very complex conversation, of course.
Let me take you down an associated road, Martin, in the sense of tech fear. Mm-hmm. Now, I will confess that there are certain bits of tech, that scare the living daylights out of me, and there's many a time when I've thought I've broke the internet by doing something. And we've talked a lot, again, in the previous podcast, and we're talking here about how tech, how resources, etc., can actually help businesses on a day in, day out basis when they are under the cosh to deal with a solution or contributing to the solution of those things. What is it about ShopSafe that people shouldn't be afraid of? Because I kind of want to explore this issue of fear, because it can stop people accessing an easier way to do it or additional resources simply because it's tech-based, if you see what I mean.
Mm-hmm. I think it actually, in my experience now of interacting with BIDS BCRPs, I don't know that it's necessarily tech fear. I think some of it is actually just fear of, am I allowed to share that information? Am I somehow running the risk of falling foul of the ICO because I'm gathering this information? So I think we as a data processor, we do provide information and guidance, and we will clearly always refer people to the ICO as a resource. But I think the upskilling of these organizations in regards to GDPR would be hugely beneficial in getting rid of some of that fear of embracing technology. I know that there's a lot of information, but I mean, not all of these organizations have the facility to go down the route of paying to train a data protection officer. GDPR is a massive topic. So I think if there can be some bite-sized, accessible and practical information that can be shared, that would be very useful. In terms of the tech, I mean, we go out of our way to make it as user-friendly as possible. So it's a very sort of engaging, sticky user interface. So it actually looks and feels a little bit like social media. It's very intuitive, and it's also very agile. So depending on what level of engagement, what product you're buying, we can literally bespoke it exactly to how you want it to look. So I think that starts to break down some of those barriers of people. It doesn't look daunting to use.
No. Talk to me a bit more about Alert then, because this kind of product, the product that you've got, one of the key things that I think, well, a couple of key things I think for bids and BCRPs are return on investment.
Yeah.
Because finance and resource is tight.
Mm-hmm.
If you are looking to get this kind of product, more and more these days, a tangible demonstration of return on investment is almost vital.
Yeah.
And also, if you're going to do that, and you said it earlier, you've got to get the data first before you do something with it, or do something with it in a correct or incorrect manner.
Yeah.
How does Alert hit those two things? I'm really interested in both of those, in terms of the ROI and in terms of the helping BCRPs and bids with the management of data.
I think for a start, I mean, we offer a range of tiers of Alert. So they, depending on your requirement and your budget, then there's a number of solutions on offer. So you can everything from a free version of Alert to a managed version of Alert, where you have a lot more functionality and a lot more bespoke features. So that makes it an attractive product, because you can fit it to your budget and your needs. In terms of the ROI, having been in a position of somebody who used to basically sign off on BCRP memberships, I think one of the challenges is that you get to like 6 months or 1 year and you get an invoice and you think, well, what am I paying for? And certainly historically there were occasions where I would ask questions like, can you give me a breakdown of some of the successes? And Alert puts that information at your fingertips. So you can very, literally at the push of a button, you can say, right, for your business, we've had X number of incident reports. These are the offenders that have been reported. These are the outcomes that we've been able to achieve for you. And this is the value of the reported loss. You can do that on a business level, or you can do it across the BCRP, so as a scheme. And that immediately, if you're looking at the cost of the membership versus what's been achieved, the ROI hits you in the face. So it's I think putting that information in a BCRP's hands is powerful. And actually, when we talk to these businesses, one of the things they like the most is the analytics that exist.
Yeah.
What you can actually report back to your users. So that's absolutely crucial. And I think it's also just obviously a big one is the outcomes you're getting. So I mean, I'm sure Sophie would agree. A BCRP is many things. It's not just radios. It's not just a platform. So being able to pull data into that scheme and accurately say, right, through various means, these are the results you achieved, and you can quantify those and present them to the members. That's where you start to really demonstrate your ROI and get reinvestment, which is important.
Sophie, can I bring you in here on this? Because we talked in the previous podcast with Amanda, we talked about the importance of accreditation. And it seems to me that a key part of accreditation, and please tell me if I'm wrong on this, is what Martin is talking about, which is a compliance system that gives you the data that can actually demonstrably prove to all partners in a BCRP the kind of success that is required if you are going to not only maintain the kind of level of investment, but also potentially increase it. Would I be right in saying that?
Yes, absolutely. Key performance indicators and demonstrating effectiveness is a massive part of the accreditation. The alert platform would be able to generate a range of KPIs that you can look back on and present in report form, and actually demonstrate that in a tangible way. Other KPIs would include kind of engagement from members, so we can look at how often people are logging in, and also things like physical visits, going out and visiting members, people coming to meetings, a number of reports put in. So all those methods are ways that we can demonstrate the effectiveness through engagement, because if nobody wants to log in and see the information, then there's nothing worth logging in for. But if we make it really full of useful information, that's seen in the logins and the active participation on the platform. So yeah, absolutely, KPIs are a massive part of the accreditation progress, and measures of engagement specifically.
Great. Martin, just if I can come to you then just with a couple of final things. I'll bring Sophie in again. We love our mnemonics in these things, as I've said before. What's BWC?
Oh, body worn camera.
Right.
Yes.
So I just wanted to touch it. One of the things that I can see happening with BCRPs and bids and so forth is the amount of, shall we say, physical assault or verbal assault, etc. Why does BWC, why do body worn cameras? Do you think they are essential now?
Almost. I think yes, they're probably viewed now as a kind of an essential part of the toolkit. And one of the drivers for that is because the impact that they've had to some extent in reducing violence against retail workers. Yeah, I mean, if you look at the retail space, there's precious few retailers who don't use body-worn cameras in some capacity, whether they simply give them to their security officers or they actually roll them out to their staff. I think the other critical thing with body-worn cameras is that evidence piece, and so in our case, we obviously sell or lease body-worn cameras. They integrated into the alert platform, so the evidence on the device is automatically sent into a cloud-based storage, which can be then accessed from alert. So you can, if you create an incident or you have create an investigation, you can immediately pull that footage into the platform. It can then be shared onwardly. So that's crucial, because that being able to produce that evidence is extremely powerful. So yeah, what's interesting in this community safety space is we obviously lease and sell a lot of radios, but we are starting to see an increasing number of bids and BCRPs rolling out body-worn cameras. So actually Rich Lane from It's in Nottingham is talking at the event in October about what they've done with rolling out this sort of technology to their members. I think it's also should point out, it's in that environment, it's probably even more important for independents. A lot of national retailers already have these devices that they're procuring, but in small independent retailers, if they can benefit from receiving that sort of technology from a bid or a BCRP, it's obviously going to make a big difference to their operation and the safety of their colleagues.
Great, thank you. Sophie, I'll come to you just finally, then I'll come back to you, Martin, for a final word. So in all of this, it seems to me that there's a real necessity for BCRPs and bids to demonstrate this, if you like, total support in partnership with others in terms of supplying a toolkit, as you say, Martin, but also demonstrating this return on investment. For you, what's the single biggest, if you like, demonstration or piece of evidence that a BCRP or a bid is delivering return on investment for its partnership?
So it's quite an intangible one, really, but the feedback loop, making sure that people are informed and kept aware and the news, training, information, alerts, intel, everything that we're kind of pumping back out to the businesses, and the fact that every single report that a retailer or business makes is invaluable, and it's an essential part of the intelligence puzzle for the local area. So I'd definitely say the feedback loop that's provided to businesses, to people working there, encouraging that motivation and that participation, and that can be evidenced in things like number of logins, number of people attending meetings, number of incidents reported, because it's kind of propagating more activity there.
So Martin, I'll come to you. Single word answer. Does alert give BCRPs and bids that kind of information that Sophie's just been talking about to demonstrate return on investment?
Yes.
And leave us with a thought. What's the one thing that you would want people to go away from and do differently, having watched this podcast?
I would encourage them to start to lead on a lot of what we've spoken about. So the adoption of technology, embrace this innovation and embrace what's available, so that you can start to think about, doing things differently in those two areas. We appreciate the fact that it comes down to your level of budget and also what your requirements are, but there are solutions to fit. And so I think by doing that, you start to become a more of a leading voice, because there absolutely is there's a critical role to be played by BCRPs and bids in the fight against business crime, retail crime, and in adopting this technology and taking those opportunities, the ROI will become apparent, and at that point, you become more and more attractive to retailers in this fight against retail crime.
Thanks to both of you. It kind of strikes me that key things in what we've been talking about are both the importance of data that actually can really demonstrate a return on investment to partners in a BCRP, that accreditation will help and give you confidence to know that you're handling that data that you've got successfully. Mm-hmm. But Martin, your organization ShopSafe has a suite kind of, or a toolkit, as you put it.
An ecosystem.
An ecosystem. I've not heard it used in that way before, but that's great. An ecosystem that can help BCRPs, retailers, etc., really not to be afraid of the tech and to use it proactively.
Yeah.
And that, to finish, what I think is great is that we've all got a part to play in this fight against retail crime, antisocial behavior that is a national issue, and that you guys are a part of that, which I think is encouraging. Thanks so much for your time. Martin, Sophie, thank you very much.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Sophie.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Martin.